The upscale nightclub in Madrid's Salamanca district was the kind of establishment that marketed itself on exclusivity, where velvet ropes and selective door policies created an atmosphere of privilege that attracted celebrities, wealthy business executives, and social influencers who valued being seen in the right places with the right people. Club Elite had built its reputation on providing a sophisticated environment where Madrid's elite could socialize without the inconvenience of mixing with ordinary citizens, and its door staff took pride in their ability to distinguish between those who belonged and those who didn't, based on appearance, clothing, and immediate recognition of social status. On this particular Saturday evening, Cristiano Ronaldo had reluctantly agreed to attend a charity fundraising event being held in the club's private VIP area, an occasion that was raising money for children's hospitals throughout Spain. He had initially declined the invitation, preferring quieter charitable activities that didn't require him to navigate the complex social dynamics of Madrid's nightlife scene. But the organizers had convinced him that his presence would significantly increase donations for a cause that was genuinely important to him. Ronaldo arrived at the club with two close friends, dressed elegantly but not ostentatiously, having chosen to drive himself rather than arriving in the kind of luxury vehicle convoy that usually announced his presence at public events. He had hoped to enter the venue quietly, attend the charity function, make his donation, and leave without creating the kind of spectacle that often accompanied his appearances at high-profile social events. His friends had advised him to use the VIP entrance to avoid any complications, but Ronaldo had chosen to use the main entrance like any other patron, not wanting to create additional work for the event organizers or to suggest that he required special treatment. What he encountered at the door, however, was a level of ignorance and prejudice that he had not experienced in years, delivered by someone whose job was supposedly to provide professional service to the club's clientele. The bouncer working the main entrance was a large man named Miguel Torres, someone who had built his sense of self-worth around his ability to exclude people from exclusive venues, and who took particular pride in his skill at identifying individuals who didn't meet his standards for admission to Madrid's most selective establishments. Torres had worked at several high-end venues throughout the city, developing a reputation for aggressive door policies that sometimes crossed the line from selective to discriminatory, but his behavior had been tolerated by management who valued his ability to maintain an exclusive atmosphere even when his methods were questionable. When Ronaldo approached the entrance with his friends, Torres looked at him with the kind of scrutiny that suggested he was searching for reasons to deny entry rather than looking for confirmation of reservation status or guest list inclusion. Despite Ronaldo's elegant clothing and obvious comfort in upscale environments, something about his appearance triggered Torres's prejudices and activated the kind of discriminatory thinking that had characterized his approach to door security throughout his career. "Hold on there," Torres said, stepping in front of Ronaldo and blocking his path to the entrance. "This is a private event tonight, invitation only. You're going to need to show me your invitation and identification before I can let you in." Ronaldo remained polite, understanding that security personnel had legitimate responsibilities and not yet recognizing the discriminatory undertones in Torres's approach. "Of course," he replied, reaching for his wallet. "I'm Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm here for the Children's Hospital charity event. The organizers should have me on their guest list." Torres looked at the identification Ronaldo provided, studying it with exaggerated care, while other guests were being waved through with minimal scrutiny. "Cristiano Ronaldo," he read aloud, his pronunciation deliberately mocking. "That's not a Spanish name, is it? Where are you really from?" The question immediately changed the dynamic of the interaction, transforming what should have been a routine security check into something more personal and invasive. Ronaldo's friends exchanged glances, recognizing that they were witnessing the beginning of a confrontation that had nothing to do with security protocols and everything to do with prejudice and power dynamics. "I'm Portuguese," Ronaldo replied calmly, still assuming that Torres was conducting some kind of legitimate verification process rather than expressing personal bigotry. "I play football for Real Madrid." and I'm here tonight to support a charity that raises money for children's medical care. Torres's response revealed the true nature of his questioning. Portuguese, right? Another one of these immigrants coming to Spain and thinking they own the place. Just because you play football doesn't mean you belong in establishments like this one. This club is for real Spanish people, not for foreigners who happen to get lucky kicking a ball around. The comment was so openly discriminatory that other people waiting in line began to pay attention to the confrontation, some looking uncomfortable with Torres's behavior, while others seemed curious about how the situation would develop. Ronaldo's friends stepped closer, clearly prepared to defend him if the bouncer's harassment escalated, but Ronaldo gestured for them to remain calm while he processed what had just been said to him. "I want to make sure I understand you correctly," Ronaldo said, his voice remaining level despite the obvious insult he had just received. "You're saying that I don't belong in this club because I'm Portuguese, because I'm an immigrant, because you don't think foreign football players should be allowed in Spanish establishments?" Torres, emboldened by what he perceived as Ronaldo's passive response, doubled down on his discriminatory position. "That's exactly what I'm saying. You people come here, take our jobs, make our money, and then act like you're better than the Spanish people who were born here. I don't care how famous you think you are, you're still just another immigrant who doesn't belong in places like this." The comment drew audible gasps from other people in line, several of whom had now recognized Ronaldo and were shocked to witness such blatant discrimination against someone who had become an adopted son of Spanish football. But what happened next surprised everyone present, including Torres himself, who had expected either angry confrontation or embarrassed retreat from his target. Instead of responding with anger or indignation, Ronaldo took a step closer to Torres and spoke in a voice that was calm but carried unmistakable authority. "Miguel," he said, reading the bouncer's name tag, "I want to thank you for something. You've just reminded me of something very important that I sometimes forget when I'm surrounded by comfort and success." Torres looked confused, having expected a very different response to his inflammatory comments. "What are you talking about?" "You've reminded me where I come from and why that's something to be proud of rather than ashamed of," Ronaldo continued. "You're right that I'm an immigrant. I came to Spain as a teenager with nothing but talent, determination, and dreams. I've worked every day for over 15 years to earn my place in this country, to contribute to Spanish society, to give back to Spanish communities, and to represent Spanish football with honor and dignity." His voice remained calm, but other people in line were now openly listening to what was becoming an impromptu speech about immigration, belonging, and dignity. "You say I don't belong in places like this because I'm Portuguese, because I'm a foreigner, because I wasn't born here. But let me tell you what I've done since I arrived in Spain as an immigrant teenager. I've paid millions of euros in taxes that support Spanish schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. I've employed hundreds of Spanish workers through my businesses and charitable activities. I've donated millions more to Spanish charities, Spanish hospitals, and Spanish community programs." Torres was beginning to look uncomfortable as he realized that his attempt to humiliate Ronaldo was instead providing the footballer with an opportunity to articulate a powerful defense of immigrant contributions to Spanish society. Other club patrons were gathering to listen, and several were recording the interaction with their phones. "I've represented Spanish football on the international stage, helping to raise the profile and prestige of Spanish clubs and Spanish players around the world," Ronaldo continued. "I've been a role model for Spanish children who dream of athletic success. I've brought honor and recognition to Spanish football through my performances and my conduct. And yes, I've made money and achieved success, but I've also used that success to benefit the country that welcomed me and gave me opportunities." He paused, looking directly at Torres with an expression that mixed disappointment with genuine concern. "But you know what, Miguel? Even if I hadn't achieved any of those things, Even if I were just an ordinary Portuguese immigrant working in a restaurant or cleaning buildings or caring for elderly Spanish people, I would still belong here because Spain is a country that is supposed to value human dignity and treat people with respect, regardless of where they were born. The crowd that had gathered was now openly supportive of Ronaldo, with several people applauding his words and others expressing disapproval of Torres's behavior. The club's management, alerted by the commotion at their entrance, had emerged to assess the situation and were clearly horrified to discover that their door staff was publicly discriminating against one of Spain's most beloved sports figures. "You want to know if I belong in Spain?" Ronaldo concluded, his voice growing stronger. "I belong in Spain because I choose to be here, because I've earned my place here through hard work and dedication, because I've contributed to Spanish society in meaningful ways, and because Spain is supposed to be a country that welcomes people who come here with good intentions and willing hearts. But mostly, I belong here because belonging isn't something you get to decide for other people based on their accent or their place of birth." The club's manager approached quickly, clearly preparing to apologize profusely and to ensure that Ronaldo was treated with the respect he deserved. But Ronaldo raised his hand to indicate that he wasn't finished speaking. "Miguel, I hope someday you'll understand that Spain's strength comes not from excluding immigrants, but from welcoming people who want to contribute to Spanish society. I hope you'll learn that treating people with dignity isn't something you do only for famous people or wealthy people, but something you do for everyone because it's the right thing to do." He turned to address the crowd that had gathered. "And to everyone else here tonight, I want you to remember that what you've just witnessed happens to immigrants every day in ways that aren't recorded by phones or witnessed by crowds. The difference is that I have the privilege of being famous enough that my voice carries weight when I respond to discrimination. Most immigrants don't have that privilege, but they deserve the same respect and dignity that any human being deserves." Torres, thoroughly humiliated and clearly understanding that his job was probably over, mumbled an incoherent apology while the club's management escorted him away from the entrance. The manager personally apologized to Ronaldo and insisted that there would be serious consequences for the discriminatory behavior, but Ronaldo's focus was already shifting to the charity event that had brought him to the club in the first place. The evening that followed was one of the most successful fundraising events in the charity's history, not just because of the money raised, but because of the conversation that Ronaldo's experience had sparked about immigration, belonging, and the responsibility of all citizens to treat newcomers with dignity and respect. Video footage of Ronaldo's response to Torres's discrimination went viral within hours, viewed millions of times and shared by people around the world who were inspired by his graceful handling of a situation that could have escalated into ugliness. But perhaps more importantly, the incident sparked broader conversations in Spanish society about how immigrants were treated, how discrimination manifested in everyday interactions, and how people with privilege and platform could use their influence to defend those who faced similar treatment without the protection of fame or wealth. Miguel Torres was fired from his position and struggled to find similar work in Madrid's hospitality industry, where his discriminatory behavior had become well known and widely condemned. But he also became an unexpected symbol of the need for education and understanding about immigration issues, eventually participating in diversity training programs, where he spoke about how his prejudices had blinded him to the contributions that immigrants made to Spanish society. Years later, when immigration policy debates arose in Spanish politics, Ronaldo's response to discrimination at the nightclub was frequently referenced as an example of how dignified, principled responses to prejudice could be more effective than angry confrontation in changing hearts and minds. And for Ronaldo himself, the incident became a reminder that his success and platform came with responsibilities to speak out against injustice, even when that injustice was directed at him personally, rather than at the causes he typically championed.